Senator from Bourbon.
I'd like to communicate with the body, Mr. President.
Please proceed.
I have several resolutions that I need to act upon. Yesterday marked the 75th anniversary of the raising of the American flag on Mount Suribachi during the Battle of Iwo Jima. The iconic picture of that flag raising quickly became a symbol of Marine Corps fighting spirit. It helped the war effort at home by galvanizing the nation and was used as an inspiration for the Marine Corps Memorial in Washington, D.C. As we reflect on this iconic image in the 75th anniversary of the event, it's important for us to remember that the iconic image was a real picture of real young men, each with their own life story. One of those men in that image was Franklin Sousley from Fleming County, Kentucky, which is in my district, and he's buried there today. Franklin was born at Hilltop, Kentucky, near Elizaville in 1925. At the age of 8, his father died, and at 9, he became the man of the house. He had to help work with the family farm and help to support himself and his mother and his younger brother. Upon graduation from high school, he went to work in the Frigidaire plant in Dayton, Ohio, to bring in income for the family. And then Uncle Sam called him away, and he joined the Marine Corps. Mr. President, could you please ask the clerk to report Senate Resolution 180 and read it in its entirety?
Mr. Clerk, would you please report Senate Resolution 180 and read it in its entirety?
Senate Resolution 180, a resolution honoring and remembering Private Franklin Runyon Sousley on the 75th anniversary of his participation in hoisting the United States flag at Iwo Jima during World War II. Whereas Private Franklin Runyon Sousley, a native of Fleming County, was a member of the U.S. Marine Corps during World War II. And whereas Private Sousley bravely fought in the battle for control of the island of Iwo Jima as a member of the 3rd Platoon Echo Company, 28th Regiment, 5th Marine Division. Whereas Private Sousley was one of 5 Marines and a Navy corpsman who were immortalized in an Associated Press photographer Joe Rosenthal's photograph of the U.S. flag rising on Mount Suribachi just after noon on February 23, 1945, the 4th day of the battle. Whereas the flag's location on the top of Mount Suribachi was a rallying point for the Marines fighting in that battle, as well as for Americans on the home front, becoming a symbol used during the 7th War Bond Drive. And whereas Private Sousley's honor, courage, and commitment greatly attributed to the success of the 36-day assault on the 8 Mile Island, his service to country and corps was reflective of more than 100,000 sailors and Marines who served on the island, the sacrifice of the 18,070 wounded and the 6,891 who were killed in action. Whereas Private Sousley was fatally shot on March 21, 1945, a victim of Japanese sniper fire on Iwo Jima less than 1 month after the flag raising. Whereas Private Sousley was one of the last Marines to die in the battle, and whereas Private Sousley's selfless heroism and participation in an iconic moment of World War II contributed to the United States of America defeating Japan and ending the war in the Pacific. His actions will, will forever be remembered by family, friends, and a grateful nation. Whereas Sunday, February 23, 2020, marked the 75th anniversary of the historic flag raising on Iwo Jima, and an entire Commonwealth stands in grateful recognition for this historic event and in solemn reverence for great Kentuckian Private Franklin Runyon Sousley. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate of the General Assembly of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, the Senate hereby honors and remembers the ultimate sacrifice paid by Private Franklin Sousley and acknowledges the 75th anniversary of the historic flag raising during the battle for Iwo Jima on February 23, 1945.
Senator from Bourbon,
I'd like to further communicate with the body, Mr. President.
please proceed.
This is not just a day to recognize Franklin Sousley, but also a day that we recognize all Kentucky Marine Corps veterans and Marine Corps veterans all over the U.S. who have sacrificed to protect this Commonwealth and this great state. I have a few of those veterans here on the floor with me today, and I would ask that you please ask the clerk to report Senate Resolution 182 and read it in its entirety.
Senate Resolution 182, resolution honoring Sergeant Robert I. Gus Cook for his exemplary service to the United States and to the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Whereas Gus Cook volunteered for the Marine Corps in January of 1966 and immediately went to boot camp at Marine Corps Recruit Depot in San Diego. Whereas upon graduation from boot camp, he was sent to Camp Pendleton in California for guerrilla warfare training and then to the Republic of Vietnam in July of 1966. Whereas Sergeant Cook was stationed at Da Nang and was attached to the 5th Communication Battalion as a teletype operator, but spent the majority of his time as a driver and courier between Communications Center on the South China Sea and Monkey and Marble Mountains. Whereas Sergeant Cook served 12 months in the Republic of Vietnam, spending the remainder of his service at Camp Lejeune, training Marines for deployment in Vietnam. Whereas Sergeant Cook achieved the rank of sergeant in 18 months, which was and still is an incredible feat and evidence of his professionalism and dedication to his country. Whereas after receiving an honorable discharge upon completion of his military service, Gus Cook returned to the civilian world, where he entered the horse business and married his wife, Teresa. They have 10 children and 32 grandchildren, including Matthew R. Cook, who followed his father into the United States Marine Corps, serving as an intelligence officer in Kosovo, and eventually earned the rank of captain, finishing his career as an assistant intel officer for the 6th Marine Air Ground Task Force in Afghanistan. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the General Assembly of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, the members of the Senate hereby honor Sergeant Robert I. Gus Cook for his exemplary service to the United States and to the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Senator from Bourbon,
Mr. President, please report Senate Resolution 183 and read it in its entirety.
Mr. Clerk, please report.
Senate Resolution 183, resolution honoring Sergeant Billy Ray West for his heroism in the line of duty. Whereas Sergeant Billy Ray West served 2 tours of duty in Vietnam, with one of those tours occurring during the Tet Offensive period. Whereas on the evening of June 17, 1968, Sergeant Billy Ray West served as a squad leader with Company A, 1st Military Police Battalion, Force Logistic Command in the Republic of Vietnam. Whereas 2 fire teams embarked on a skimmer boat to be transported to their respective ambush sites along the Condu River. Whereas en route, one of the small boats suddenly capsized, hurling the heavily laden men into the deep and swiftly flowing river. Whereas upon his surfacing, Sergeant West immediately rallied the disoriented men around the boat, directing them to shed as much equipment as possible and cling to the side of the overturned vessel. Whereas after assisting the radio operator, he immediately utilized the radio to request assistance from his company, then directed the team leaders to ensure that all of their men were accounted for. Whereas displaying calm presence in mind and outstanding leadership, he then moved about while assisting several men to the side of the capsized boat and calling words of encouragement to his companions until another skimmer boat arrived at their position. Whereas Sergeant West's courage, bold initiative, and devotion to duty were in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. Whereas whereas for his acts of heroism and bravery, Sergeant West was awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Medal, the National Defense Medal, the Vietnam Service Medal, and the Vietnam Campaign Medal. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the General Assembly of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, the members of the Senate hereby honor Sergeant Billy Ray West for his acts of heroism and valor beyond the call of duty.
Senator from Bourbon.
Yes, Mr. President. Before I move for adoption, I believe we have maybe others on the floor that would like to communicate on this resolution.
Senator from Warren.
Thank you, Mr. President. As a Marine myself, that's one thing that you are always a Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine. And also, Marines are a little bit different culture than any other branch of the service. Though we respect each other and we fight together, the Marines actually earn the title U.S. Marine. You're never called a Marine till the day you graduate from boot camp. And so I just want to stand in support, because I never will forget, as we were on the parade deck every day in boot camp at Parris Island, that we always saw that was kind of a miniature in comparison to the real monument of Iwo Jima that's in Washington, D.C. But to see that iconic structure out there, we learned the history of the Marine Corps and the battles that the Marines had fought in, and I am 100% proud to be a U.S. Marine, proud to stand in support of my Marine brothers here on the floor today and honoring them and their sacrifice, their service, as well as Private Sousley for his sacrifice and being immortalized in that monument that we celebrate as that iconic symbol of all Marines everywhere. And I just want to stand in support of these resolutions today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Recognition for the purpose of question or discussion on the resolutions. Seeing none, Senator from Bourbon,
Yes, Mr. President. Communicate one more time.
please proceed.
I think this is a good day that we recognize what happened 75 years ago. I think it's a great day when all eras are represented here, all Marines. We have the Franklin Sousley generation. We have the Vietnam era generation. We have Mr. Cook, Sergeant Cook's son, Matthew Cook, the today's generation, and I think we have, Mr. President, your son is currently serving our country in the Marine Corps at this time. So I would ask at this time that we move for adoption of Senate Resolution 180, and we'll go through them one at a time, if that's okay, Mr.
The
President.
matter before the body is adoption of Senate Resolution 180. Any other member seeking recognition for the purpose of question or discussion on this resolution? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Resolution is adopted. Senator from Bourbon.
Now move for adoption of Senate Resolution 182.
Any other member seeking recognition on this resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Resolution is adopted. Senator from Bourbon.
Now move for adoption of Senate Resolution 183.
Matter for the body is adoption of Senate Resolution 183. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Senate Resolution 183 is adopted. Senator from Bourbon.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I would ask that these Marines be recognized by this honorable body as they should, and that all their family and friends that are here today be granted floor privileges for today and today only.
If they would the families please stand? Let us recognize you as well as these two gentlemen. Let us welcome you to the Senate floor and congratulate you and thank you for your service. Senator from Bourbon,
If I could communicate one more time, Mr. President.
please proceed.
My dad, who was Sergeant West, said we forgot the oorah. We should have done that. But we just want to thank you all for the support that you've given them, and they were humbled by this. And as they were talking ahead of this, Sergeant Cook and Sergeant West realized that they served in Vietnam a few miles away from each other. So now they reunited today. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other members seeking recognition under the order